The old college building looked tired under the dim streetlights. I leaned against my beat-up blue Ford, checking the watch on my wrist. Even with the day's exhaustion weighing on me after my shift at the mechanic shop, my mind was calm, almost hopeful. I knew my day wasn't over until I saw Chloe get home safely. This routine, which to others might seem like a burden, was just my way of showing love, my promise that I would always be there, supporting her when things got tough. The sound of hurried footsteps mixed with the laughter and conversations of other students leaving the university. Chloe appeared among them, her backpack slung over one shoulder, with a look on her face that couldn't hide how utterly exhausted she was. She walked slowly, almost dragging her feet, but her eyes held a stubborn look, as if that mix of tiredness and hope inside her just wouldn't give up. I walked up to her with that warm smile I always had for her, no matter how hard my day had been. Seeing her lit something up inside me. "You look wiped out," I said softly, as I took the heavy backpack from her hands. Chloe wanted to argue, but she didn't have the energy. She let me carry the weight for her, just as I had done so many times before. "How was your day?" I asked as I opened the car door for her. "Long, same as usual," Chloe replied, her voice flat. Inside the car, the air was warm and smelled of the old seats. I started the engine with a rumble that was familiar to both of us, like a constant friend on our late-night drives. As I drove, I tried to coax a smile out of Chloe by telling funny stories about the guys at the shop. Today, someone put transmission fluid in the windshield wiper tank. Ended up with a greasy windshield. You should have seen it. I let out a small laugh. Chloe managed a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her mind seemed stuck somewhere else. I could see the lines of worry on her forehead, the way she bit her lip. I knew she was thinking about bills, expensive books, her difficult boss at the clothing store. I noticed her silence. At a red light, I turned my head to look at her. My eyes searched for something more than just her tiredness, a sign that everything was okay, that the dream she was chasing was still worth it. "You know this is just for now, right? All this hard work is going to pay off, Chloe." "I know it will." She nodded slowly, but I could tell she wasn't sure. It hurt to see her doubt. I wanted to take all her worries away. When we arrived at Chloe's small apartment building, I turned off the car and got out quickly to open her door. As she walked up the stairs, I grabbed a package I had hidden in the back seat. When Chloe opened the apartment door, I reached her, holding out the package with a nervous smile. "It's for you." Chloe took it, curious. When she opened it, she found a law book she had mentioned weeks earlier. Her hands trembled slightly holding it. She knew how much it cost. And more than that, she knew what it meant. It meant I had worked extra hours, saved every dollar I could. "Brandon, you shouldn't have. This is too much." "It was necessary," I said, trying to sound casual. "You are necessary. This book will help you get where you need to go." She felt a stubborn tear roll down her face. She hugged me tightly, but I felt a strange stiffness in her embrace. I knew she was grateful, but I also felt her worry about the cost, about my sacrifice. For me, though, it wasn't a sacrifice. Anything for her. That night, I drove home feeling good. I had helped her, even if just a little. I knew she was sitting there with that book, maybe feeling its weight, but I hoped she also felt my love wrapped up in it. I thought about her classmates, how easy life was for some of them. Sometimes it annoyed me how much she had to fight for everything, but I also knew how strong she was. I just hoped my support was enough to keep her going. The alarm clock shrieked in the dark, breaking the pre-dawn silence. I woke up, my body aching from work, but my first thought was of Chloe. Was she getting enough sleep? Was she eating right? I knew her life was a constant struggle, working at that clothing store, studying late, trying to make ends meet. I thought about the times I picked her up, how tired she looked. The dark circles under her eyes seemed deeper each week. She tried to hide it, but I saw the tension in her face, the way she sometimes flinched when I mentioned money or her classes. She didn't talk much about university lately, not like she used to. In the beginning, she would tell me about her classes, her professors, her dreams, but lately she just said, "Fine." Same as usual. I knew it wasn't fine. I knew she was dealing with more than just difficult classes. I remembered the few times I had been inside the university building. It felt like another world. Big, elegant, full of students who looked like they had never worried about a bill in their lives. Their clothes were different. Their cars were different. Even the way they talked was different. I saw how Chloe sometimes shrank back, how she seemed to try and disappear into the background. It hurt to see her feel inferior, to hear her talk about comments from other students, little digs about her job or her clothes. I wanted to tell her they were just jealous, that she was smarter and worked harder than any of them. But I knew those words cut deep. Her job at the clothing store wasn't any better. Her boss was an idiot, always picking on her. And some of her coworkers. They weren't exactly rooting for her. I'd overhear her on the phone sometimes, talking about the things they said. Not everyone is cut out for this. It was as if they wanted her to stay exactly where she was, in that small, tired world. I tried to help in small ways. Sometimes I'd make her a lunch, just a simple sandwich, but I hoped it showed I was thinking of her. I'd leave little notes in her backpack. "You got this. Keep going. I'm proud of you." I wanted her to know she wasn't alone in this fight. I started picking up extra shifts at the shop, saving money. I knew she was struggling with university fees. I didn't want her to have to give up just because of money. It wasn't much, but I managed to put some away. The sound of applause filled the university's main hall, a wave of noise that washed over me. I was there, sitting in the back, among rows of proud families, watching Chloe. She was in the middle of a crowd of classmates in black gowns and caps, all looking the same from a distance, but I could spot her anywhere. She held a diploma, a rolled-up piece of paper tied with a ribbon, but that meant years of hard work, tears, and sleepless nights. It meant she had done it. Around them, laughter and hugs filled the air, a buzz of excitement and relief. But from where I sat, I could see a stillness in Chloe, an unmoving quality in the midst of the celebration. I felt a lump in my throat, thick with emotion. My Chloe, my amazing, strong Chloe. She did it. Against everything. Against the long hours, the rude bosses, the classmates who made her feel small. She did it. I wore my best suit, the one I saved for special occasions like weddings and funerals. It wasn't fancy like the ones the other parents and husbands wore, tailored suits that probably cost more than my rent, but it was clean and pressed, and I felt good in it. My hair was neatly combed, and I sat up straight, trying to project the pride I felt, a pride so big it felt like it would burst from my chest. When her name echoed over the loudspeakers, Chloe Adams, my heart seemed to stop for a second. Then, it exploded in a mix of strong feelings, joy, relief, overwhelming pride. I couldn't help myself. Tears filled my eyes, blurring my vision for a moment, and my voice cracked with emotion. But I shouted with all my might, louder than I intended, louder than anyone else. "That's my girl! Way to go, Chloe! You did it!" A few people around me turned to look, probably wondering who the loud guy in the back was, the one with the slightly too big suit. I didn't care. Not one bit. All I saw was Chloe, up there on the stage, walking to get her diploma. She turned her head, and for a moment, our eyes met across the distance. I saw her smile, a real smile this time, and in that moment, the years of struggle, the long nights, the worries, it all seemed worth it. My pride for her was a physical thing, a warmth spreading through me from my chest to my fingertips. When the ceremony ended, a chaotic rush of people trying to find their loved ones, I hurried to the meeting area to find her. I had a bouquet of flowers for her, simple, from the supermarket, a mix of vibrant colors. They weren't fancy roses, but I chose the ones that looked the happiest, the ones that reminded me of her smile. Seeing me, she came towards me, her black gown swaying at her ankles, and I couldn't help myself. I pulled her into a tight hug, lifting her off the ground for a second. "I knew this day would come," I said, my voice still a little shaky with emotion. "I knew you could do it. I am so proud of you, Chloe, more than words can say." She hugged me back, but again, I felt that strange stiffness, that slight distance even as we embraced, as I talked excitedly, telling her how amazing she was, how this was just the beginning. I saw her looking around, at the other families, their elegant clothes, their expensive cars parked outside the building, at the groups of students making plans to celebrate at restaurants I only saw in magazines, places that felt like another world. It all seemed so far away, so different from what she and I could afford, from the simple life we had together. I tried to ignore it, tried to bring her attention back to me, to us. I took her hand, her fingers feeling small and a little cold in mine, and guided her towards my car. The drive to her place was filled with my excited chatter about the future, about the amazing things she would do now that she was a lawyer. I talked about how we would celebrate tonight, just us. A quiet celebration at her apartment. When we got to her apartment, I was so happy to show her what I had done. I had spent the afternoon cleaning her place and decorating the living room with colorful balloons I bought at the party store, and a homemade banner I painted myself that said, "Congratulations, lawyer," with a slightly crooked star. On the table, I had prepared her favorite dinner: roasted chicken, rice, and salad. Simple, but made with care. In the middle, a small cake I bought at the bakery, with a message written in frosting: "To all your achievements." "I know it's not much," I said, watching her face as she looked at everything. Her eyes were wide, and I saw a flicker of surprise, maybe even emotion. "But I wanted you to know how much I admire you, how much I love you. You deserve to be celebrated." She walked slowly towards the table, running her fingers over the homemade banner, the paint still a little sticky in places. My eyes filled with tears again, seeing her reaction, thinking that maybe, just maybe, I had shown her how much she meant to me. But then I saw the look in her eyes, and it wasn't just gratitude. There was something else there, something I couldn't quite decipher. A sadness, a conflict. It was as if she appreciated the effort, the love behind it, but it wasn't what she wanted. Not really. I knew how much effort it had cost me to put it all together, working extra hours, saving up. I knew that every little detail, every balloon, every flower, every dish, had been thought of with love. But I also knew, with a drowning feeling, that this simple life, my simple celebration, wasn't enough for the world she was starting to enter. As we ate dinner, I kept talking about the plans we had ahead, about her finding a job, about her future. "Now that you've finished college, Chloe, nothing can stop you. You're so smart, so determined. I'm sure you'll get wherever you want to go, and I'll be right there with you, supporting you every step of the way." She looked at me, nodding, picking at her food, but her mind was somewhere else. I saw her look at her phone sometimes, saw her scrolling through pictures, probably seeing the other celebrations, the ones I couldn't give her. Dinners at expensive restaurants, toasts with champagne flutes, celebrations in places that seemed otherworldly compared to her small apartment. As I kept talking, trying to fill the silence, I felt a sharp pang of shame that I couldn't ignore. My simple dinner, my old car, my job at the shop, wasn't it enough for her anymore? Wasn't I enough? After dinner, as I was clearing the table, I led her to the couch and handed her a small package wrapped in gift paper I bought at the dollar store. "It's just a little something," I said, handing it to her, feeling suddenly nervous. "But I want you to have it." She opened it carefully. It was a nice pen, good quality, with her name engraved in simple letters. I thought a good pen was something every lawyer needed, a tool of her new trade. It was a humble gift compared to the expensive things I saw other graduates getting, but I put a lot of thought into it. "I don't know what to say," she murmured, turning the pen in her hands. "You don't have to say anything," I said, my heart full, trying to ignore the discomfort I felt. "I just want you to remember that I'll always be here, supporting you every step of the way. This pen is for signing all those important papers you'll be dealing with." She hugged me, and I held her close, but as I did, my mind kept going back to the images of that day. The suits, the cars, the toasts, and the gap that was starting to form between the world she dreamed of and the reality we shared. It felt wider than ever. That night, as I washed the dishes in the kitchen, the sound of running water filling the quiet apartment, she sat on the bed, looking at the pen on the nightstand. I couldn't stop thinking about how different our lives were, about the things I could never give her. For the first time, I felt deep in my gut, a cold, hard certainty. The world Chloe was entering had no place for me. It wasn't just about money, or fancy things, or expensive places. It was about a way of life, a set of expectations, a future where my simple love and constant support weren't enough. The thought was like a physical blow, knocking the air out of me, leaving a hollow ache in my chest. It felt like a betrayal, not just of her, but of the future I thought we were building. The graduation celebration, the homemade banner, the carefully prepared dinner, it all felt like a last, desperate attempt to hold on to something that was already slipping away. And standing there, watching her look at that pen, I knew I was losing her. In the days after graduation, the distance I had felt before became an abyss, wide and deep. Chloe didn't answer my calls right away. Her texts were short, just a few words. She was busy when I asked to see her, always had an excuse. Each time my call went to voicemail, or I got a text saying she couldn't talk, the fear grew heavier, settling in my stomach like a stone. I knew, logically, that she was starting her career, that she would be busy with interviews, networking, but this felt different. It felt intentional. It felt like she was actively avoiding me, as if she was already living in that new world, and I wasn't invited. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking. She was just stressed, focused on her future. This is what we had worked for, right? For her to have these opportunities. But the knot of anxiety in my stomach just tightened. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. The silence, the unanswered calls, the feeling of being shut out. It was too much. I drove to her apartment after work, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my knuckles white. The old Ford seemed to know the way itself. I had to see her, had to talk to her, had to understand what was happening between us. I knocked on her door, my heart pounding against my ribs like a drum. When she opened it, the look on her face confirmed my worst fears. She looked surprised to see me, maybe a little annoyed that I had shown up unannounced, and definitely guilty. Her eyes widened slightly, and she hesitated before opening the door fully. "Brandon, what are you doing here?" Her voice was low, cautious. I took a step forward, wanting to come in, to be close to her, but she didn't move, didn't invite me inside. She just stood there, blocking the entrance, the small space of the apartment behind her, the place where we had shared so many quiet evenings, where I had celebrated her biggest achievement just days before, suddenly felt like a place I no longer belonged. I needed to see you," I said, my voice a little hoarse. "You haven't been answering my calls. Is everything okay? Are you all right?" She took a step back slightly, but still didn't open the door completely. She avoided my gaze, looking down at her hands. The small doorway suddenly felt huge, a barrier between us. "Brandon, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. This was it. The conversation I had dreaded, the one I knew was coming, but that I desperately hoped wouldn't. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to sound calm, even though my insides were twisting. "Can I come in? Maybe we should just talk here." She still wasn't looking at me. I understood. She couldn't face me in the living room I had decorated with balloons just days before. Couldn't stand there and tell me what she was about to tell me, surrounded by the evidence of my love and hope. He stood quiet for a moment, then nodded again, his shoulders slumping slightly, accepting his limit. "All right." Taking a deep breath that didn't seem to fill her lungs, she began to speak. The words sounded clumsy and cruel as they came out, like stones dropping one by one. "Brandon, I've finished college now. Things are going to change for me." I tried one last time to cling to hope, to pretend I didn't know where this was going. "Yeah, I know. That's great, Chloe. I'm so happy for you. You're going to do amazing things." "No, I mean, things are changing for us." My mind went blank. The street noise seemed to fade away. I just stared at her, trying to understand, trying to grasp how things changing for her meant things changing for us. "What do you mean, Chloe?" She finally looked at me, and her eyes were filled with something I didn't recognize, a mix of sadness and determination, maybe even a little fear of what she was doing. But there was also a coldness there, a resolve that cut me to the bone. I'm going to be a lawyer, a real lawyer. My life is going to be different now. I'm going to be working with different kinds of people, going to different places where you wouldn't fit in. The last part hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. Places where you wouldn't fit in. The words echoed in my head, cold and clear, like a judge's final sentence. It wasn't about my job, or my car, or my background anymore. It was about me. I didn't fit in. I wasn't good enough for the future she wanted. I don't fit in. My voice was just a whisper, the air knocked out of me. "It's not about you," she said. But it was a lie, a thin, transparent lie. We both knew it was exactly about me. "It's about my future, the life I need to build, the life you need to build." I finally looked away, at the street, at the cars passing by, trying to control the sudden surge of hurt, anger, and confusion. I thought we were building a life together. That's what I had been working for, sacrificing for, dreaming of. A life with her. Tears stung my eyes. hot and sudden. But I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. I blinked them back fiercely. I had to be strong. Had to get through this without falling apart. I can't, Brandon. Not anymore. We're just too different. We want different things. She said it so simply, so matter-of-factly, as if she was stating a fact about the weather or about a case she was studying. Too different. All our love, all our history, all my support, all the years we spent together, it was all erased, made meaningless, because we were too different, now that she had a degree. I stood there for what felt like an hour, though it was probably only a minute or two. The silence stretched between us, heavy and final, sealing our fate. I looked at her, the woman I loved more than anything in the world, the woman I sacrificed for, the woman I thought was my future, my partner in life, and in that moment, she looked like a stranger, someone who had outgrown me, who had left me behind. Finally, I found my voice. It was flat, empty, stripped of all emotion. "Okay, Chloe." I nodded slowly, the movement stiff. I understand." There was nothing left to say. No argument to make. No promises to beg for. No way to convince her that my love was enough, even if I didn't fit into her new world. She had made her choice, and the man who loved her unconditionally, the man who would have given her the world if he could, didn't fit into that choice. I wish you all the best, Brandon." Her voice was shaky now, the resolve wavering slightly. I just nodded again, a single, slow dip of my head. I turned and walked away, down the stairs and out the front door. I didn't look back, didn't trust myself to. I got into my old Ford and started the engine. The rumble of the motor felt like the only real thing in the world now. I pulled away from the curb, away from her apartment, away from the future I thought we had, the future I worked so hard for. The car felt empty. The world outside felt muted, the city lights blurred by my unshed tears. I lost her, not to another man or a big fight, but to a dream she had, a dream of a different life, a life that didn't include me. My heart was broken, shattered into a million pieces. But beneath the pain, beneath the crushing weight of loss, a small, hard knot of something else began to form. Resignation, yes, but also, maybe, just maybe, the first spark of something new, a determination. My life with Chloe was over. Now I had to figure out what my life without her would be. And I knew, with a sudden, fierce certainty, that I wouldn't let this break me. The world outside the old Ford felt muted, the city lights blurred by unshed tears. I pulled away from the curb, away from her apartment, away from the future I thought we had, the future I worked so hard for. The car felt empty. My heart was broken, shattered into a million pieces. But beneath the pain, beneath the crushing weight of loss, a small, hard knot of something else began to form. Resignation, yes, but also, maybe, just maybe, the first spark of something new, a determination. My life with Chloe was over. Now I had to figure out what my life without her would be. And I knew, with a sudden, fierce certainty, that I wouldn't let this break me. The days that followed were a blur of work and exhaustion. I threw myself into my job at the mechanic shop with a ferocity I hadn't known I possessed. Every wrench turned, every engine fixed, every late-night emergency call was a distraction, a way to keep my mind from the gaping hole in my chest. The smell of oil and gasoline became my perfume, the clang of metal, my soundtrack. My coworkers noticed the change, the quiet intensity, the refusal to take breaks, the dark circles under my eyes that weren't just from long hours anymore. They offered hesitant words of comfort, but I just nodded, unable to articulate the depth of the wound. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, either physically or emotionally. When I finally collapsed into bed, the silence of my small apartment was deafening. Memories of Chloe flooded in. Her laugh, the way she bit her lip when she was concentrating, the feel of her hand in mine. Each memory was a fresh stab of pain. I would lie there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, searching for signs I had missed, trying to understand how the woman I loved, the woman I had supported unconditionally, could walk away so easily. But with the pain came that stubborn knot of determination. She thought I wasn't enough. She thought I didn't fit into her world. Fine. I would build my own world. A world built not on status or money, but on hard work, integrity, and proving my own worth. I started looking into night classes. Not in mechanics this time. I thought about Chloe, about the law books, about the world she was so eager to enter. Maybe I could understand that world. Maybe I could prove that someone like me, someone from the wrong side of the tracks, could not only fit in, but excel. It was a crazy idea. I was a mechanic. I barely finished high school without working full-time. But the idea took root, a small seed of defiance in the barren landscape of my grief. I found a local community college that offered evening pre-law courses. The tuition was steep, even for a few classes. I started working even more hours, taking on every extra job I could. My old Ford became my office, my classroom, my sanctuary. I'd eat cold sandwiches between shifts, hunched over textbooks under the dim glow of streetlights. Math, English, history, subjects I hadn't thought about in years, felt daunting. But the memory of Chloe's words, places where you wouldn't fit in, fueled my resolve. The first few months were brutal. Juggling a physically demanding job with mentally taxing classes left me constantly exhausted. There were nights I fell asleep with my face in a textbook, waking up stiff and disoriented hours later. There were moments of doubt, when the mountain ahead seemed too high, the gap between where I was and where I wanted to be too wide. But then I'd remember the look in Chloe's eyes that night, the casual dismissal, and the anger, cold and sharp, would reignite my determination. I didn't talk about my classes at the shop. It felt too vulnerable, too much like a pipe dream. My coworkers saw me tired, quiet, but they just assumed I was still hurting from the breakup. But the pain was slowly being channeled into something productive. My grades were surprisingly good. I was a diligent student, maybe not the quickest, but I was persistent. I read every assigned page, did every practice problem, asked questions even when my voice trembled with nerves. I discovered a part of my brain I hadn't known existed, a capacity for analytical thinking, for understanding complex ideas. It was a revelation. It wasn't just about proving Chloe wrong anymore. It was about discovering something new about myself. After a year of pre-law, I applied to a night law school program. It was even more expensive, even more demanding. I had saved every penny, lived on instant noodles and cheap coffee. I took out loans, a terrifying prospect, but I saw it as an investment in myself, a gamble I had to take. The law school was in a different part of the city, a part I rarely visited. The building was old and imposing, filled with students who seemed younger, more confident, more at ease in this environment than I was. I still felt like an outsider, the mechanic in a room full of aspiring lawyers. But I wasn't the same person who had stood outside Chloe's apartment, heartbroken and lost. I had a purpose now. Law school was a different kind of challenge. It wasn't just about memorizing facts. It was about thinking critically, arguing persuasively, understanding the nuances of justice. I struggled at times, feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of material. But my work ethic, honed by years of manual labor and late-night studying, served me well. I was disciplined, focused, and relentless. It was during my second year of law school that I met Mariana. She was in my torts class, quiet and observant, with a kind smile and eyes that seemed to see right through to the real person. She wasn't flashy or loud. She had a quiet strength about her. We started talking after class, first about the material, then about our lives. Mariana was different from anyone I had ever met. She came from a modest background herself, understood the value of hard work, and had a deep sense of empathy. She was studying law because she believed in justice, in helping people, not because she wanted status or money. She listened patiently as I talked about my job, my classes, my past. I told her about Chloe, not with bitterness, but as a part of my story, a difficult chapter that had ultimately led me down this path. Mariana didn't judge. She just listened, her eyes warm and understanding. She saw the dedication behind the exhaustion, the passion behind the quiet demeanor. She saw me, the real me, not the mechanic, not the aspiring lawyer, but the man who valued integrity, loyalty, and hard work. She started studying with me, late into the night at the library. She'd bring coffee and snacks, her presence a calming influence in the stressful environment. She celebrated my small victories, a good grade on a paper, A successful argument in class, as if they were her own. She never pressured me, never made me feel like I wasn't enough. She simply was there, a steady, supportive presence. With Mariana by my side, the weight of the world felt lighter. The path ahead still seemed challenging, but I wasn't walking it alone anymore. She didn't care about my old car or my background. She cared about my character, my dreams, my heart. She valued me for who I was, not for what I could provide or what world I belonged to. Gradually, the ache in my chest began to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence. It wasn't about external validation anymore. It was about the satisfaction of mastering a difficult subject, the pride in seeing my own progress, the joy of building a connection with someone who truly saw and appreciated me. I finished law school, not at the top of the class, but with solid grades and a reputation for being diligent and ethical. I passed the bar exam on my first try, a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph. I wasn't just a mechanic anymore. I was Brandon J. D. Finding a job wasn't easy. Big firms weren't exactly lining up to hire a former mechanic from a night program, but I wasn't looking for a big firm. I wanted to work somewhere where I could make a difference, where integrity mattered more than prestige. I found a small firm that specialized in representing individuals and small businesses, a firm that valued hard work and a genuine desire to help people. My first few years as a lawyer were a steep learning curve. The courtroom was a different kind of workshop. The tools were words and arguments. The stakes were people's lives and livelihoods. I worked long hours, poring over case files, researching precedents, drafting briefs. I wasn't the flashiest lawyer, but I was thorough, prepared, and fiercely dedicated to my clients. My mechanic background, surprisingly, was an asset. I understood complex systems, could troubleshoot problems, and wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty, metaphorically speaking. I approached legal cases with the same methodical approach I used to fix engines. Diagnose the problem, identify the root cause, and find the most effective solution. Mariana was my rock throughout it all. She was building her own career at a nonprofit, fighting for social justice. We supported each other, celebrated each other's successes, and leaned on each other during the tough times. Our life together was simple, built on shared values, mutual respect, and quiet love. We weren't chasing status or wealth. We were building a life of meaning and connection. Years passed. My reputation as a diligent and ethical lawyer grew. I took on challenging cases, often representing clients who couldn't afford big firm representation. I wasn't getting rich, but I was building a fulfilling career, earning the respect of my colleagues and the gratitude of my clients. I had found my place in the world, not the one Chloe thought I should aspire to, but one I had built myself, brick by painstaking brick, on a foundation of self-worth and integrity. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the hushed space. Judge Thompson, a stern but fair presence on the bench, looked down at the two legal teams. This was it. The final arguments in the case of Sterling Industries v. Harrington. I stood at the plaintiff's table, my heart pounding a steady rhythm against my ribs. Across the aisle, at the defendant's table, sat the legal team for Sterling Industries, one of the largest corporations in the state. And at the head of that table, cool and composed in a perfectly tailored suit, was Chloe. It had been years since I last saw her, the night she told me I didn't fit into her world. I had heard things, of course, that she had joined a prestigious firm, that she was quickly rising through the ranks, handling high-profile corporate cases. But seeing her here, across from me in a courtroom, felt surreal. She looked different. Older, of course, but also harder, more polished. The youthful hope I had once loved was still there, perhaps, but buried beneath layers of professional armor. Her hair was styled impeccably, her makeup flawless, her expression unreadable. She was the picture of corporate success. Our eyes met for a brief second as the judge called the case. There was no flicker of recognition, no hint of our shared past. Just a cool, professional assessment, the kind a lawyer gives to their opponent. It was as if the years, the love, the heartbreak had never happened. Or perhaps, for her, they truly hadn't mattered. The case was complex. Harrington, a small, family-owned manufacturing company, was suing Sterling Industries for breach of contract, claiming Sterling had unfairly terminated a long-term supply agreement, pushing Harrington to the brink of bankruptcy. Sterling, represented by Chloe's firm, argued that Harrington had failed to meet quality standards and that the termination was justified. For Harrington, this case was everything. Their livelihood, their legacy, depended on the outcome. For Sterling, it was a minor inconvenience, a potential dent in their profits, a case to be handled efficiently and decisively. And for me, representing Harrington, it was a chance to fight for the little guy, to use my skills to protect those who couldn't protect themselves against the power of a corporate giant. Chloe began her closing argument, her voice clear and confident, filling the courtroom. She presented Sterling's case with precision and logic, highlighting every perceived flaw in Harrington's operation, every clause in the contract that favored her client. She was good, sharp, articulate, persuasive. She moved with an effortless grace, commanding the attention of everyone in the room. As I listened, I felt a strange mix of emotions, a grudging respect for her legal skills, a pang of sadness for the person she had become, and a renewed sense of purpose. She was fighting for a corporation that prioritized profit over people. I was fighting for a family trying to save their business. Our paths had diverged not just professionally, but morally. When it was my turn, I walked to the podium, my movements perhaps less polished than hers, my suit less expensive. But as I began to speak, I felt a surge of confidence that came not from arrogance, but from conviction. I believed in my client. I believed in their story. I didn't focus on legal jargon or complex contract clauses. I told the story of the Harrington family, of their decades of hard work, of the jobs they provided for their community, of the trust they had placed in Sterling Industries. I spoke about the impact of Sterling's decision, not just on the bottom line, but on real people's lives. I presented the evidence not just as facts, but as pieces of a larger narrative, a narrative of a powerful corporation using its leverage to crush a smaller partner. I countered Chloe's arguments not just with legal precedents, but with a focus on fairness and equity. I spoke with passion, with sincerity, with the voice of someone who understood what it meant to struggle, what it meant to be overlooked. As I spoke, I saw a subtle shift in the courtroom. The jury members, who had looked somewhat bored during Chloe's technical arguments, seemed to lean forward, their eyes fixed on me. Judge Thompson's expression remained neutral, but I felt a sense of attentive listening from the bench, and I saw Chloe. Her professional mask slipped for just a second. A flicker of something, surprise, recognition, crossed her face. She hadn't expected this. She had expected the mechanic, the guy who didn't fit in. She hadn't expected the lawyer who could command a courtroom, who could connect with a jury on a human level. I finished my argument, my voice steady, my gaze sweeping across the jury. This case, I concluded, is not just about a contract. It's about whether a powerful corporation can break its promises and destroy a family's livelihood without consequence. It's about whether justice in this country is only for the wealthy and powerful, or whether it extends to everyone, regardless of their size or status. I returned to my seat, the silence in the courtroom amplifying the weight of my words. The contrast between my presentation and Chloe's was stark. She had argued the law. I had argued for justice. The judge gave the jury their instructions, and they retired to deliberate. The tension in the courtroom remained palpable. Across the aisle, Chloe avoided my gaze, conferring quietly with her team. I sat with the Harrington family, offering quiet words of reassurance, feeling a profound sense of peace regardless of the outcome. I had done my best. I had fought with integrity and conviction. I had proven, to myself and to the world, that I belonged here. The jury was out for several hours. Every minute felt like an eternity. Mariana had sent me a text earlier. Thinking of you. You've got this. Her support, quiet and unwavering, was a constant source of strength. When the jury finally returned, a hush fell over the courtroom. The foreman stood, holding the verdict form. My heart hammered in my chest. The Harrington family gripped my hand, their faces pale with anxiety. Chloe and her team stood stiffly, their expressions unreadable. In the case of Sterling Industries versus Harrington, the foreman's voice was clear. We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Harrington. A collective gasp filled the room, followed by a quiet sob from Mrs. Harrington. I felt a wave of relief wash over me so powerful it almost brought me to my knees. We had won. The small family business had prevailed against the corporate giant. I turned to the Harrington family, a wide smile spreading across my face. They hugged me, tears streaming down their faces, their gratitude overwhelming. Across the aisle, Chloe's face was a mask of professional disappointment, but beneath it, I thought I saw a flicker of something else. Surprise, perhaps even a reluctant acknowledgement. As the courtroom cleared, I gathered my files, the weight of the victory settling in. I had faced the woman who had dismissed me, in the very world she believed I didn't belong in, and I had won. But the victory felt less about proving her wrong and more about proving myself right. Right about my abilities, right about my values, right about the path I had chosen. I saw Chloe walking towards the exit, surrounded by her team. She didn't look at me, but as she passed, she paused for a fraction of a second, her eyes meeting mine. There was no animosity, no regret visible on her face, just a brief, silent acknowledgement across the space that now separated our two very different worlds. Weeks after the verdict in Sterling Industries v. Harrington, the legal community was still buzzing. The win for Harrington was seen as a significant upset, a David and Goliath story that resonated beyond the dry facts of contract law. My name, once unknown in these circles, was now mentioned with respect. An invitation arrived for a formal event, a gala dinner hosted by the State Bar Association, celebrating notable achievements in the legal field. I hesitated. These kinds of events weren't really my scene, but Mariana encouraged me to go. "You earned this, Brandon," she said, her eyes sparkling. "You deserve to be recognized for the incredible work you did." So, I bought a new suit, a simple but well-fitting one, and Mariana found a beautiful dress. As we arrived at the Grand Hotel ballroom, I felt a familiar twinge of being out of place. The room was filled with lawyers in expensive suits and gowns, their conversations punctuated by laughter and the clinking of glasses. But this time, the feeling wasn't one of inferiority, but simply of being myself in a different environment. I was comfortable in my own skin, confident in the person I had become. Mariana stayed close by my side, her hand resting lightly on my arm. Her presence was a grounding force, a reminder of what truly mattered. We talked to colleagues, some of whom congratulated me warmly on the Harrington case. I introduced Mariana with pride, and she greeted everyone with her usual grace and warmth. As the evening progressed, I saw Chloe across the crowded room. She was with a group of people who looked just as polished and successful as she did. She seemed to be laughing, her head tilted back slightly, a picture of effortless charm. Our eyes met briefly, and this time, she didn't look away immediately. A small, hesitant smile touched her lips. I nodded back, a polite, distant acknowledgement. Later, as Mariana and I were standing by the bar, talking quietly, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned and saw Chloe standing there, alone. "Brandon," she said, her voice softer than it had been in the courtroom. "Hello, Chloe," I replied, my voice calm and even. "It's good to see you." She glanced at Mariana, who offered a friendly smile. "Mariana, this is Chloe Adams. Chloe, this is Mariana, my partner." Chloe's smile tightened slightly as she acknowledged Mariana. "Nice to meet you, Mariana." "You too," Mariana replied genuinely. Chloe turned back to me, a nervous energy about her. She fidgeted with the clutch in her hand. I wanted to congratulate you on the Harrington case, Brandon. You were very impressive." "Thank you, Chloe," I said simply. It was a challenging case. A silence hung between us, thick with unspoken history. She seemed to be searching for words, her usual composure wavering. "Look, Brandon," she began, her voice lower now, more vulnerable. I wanted to say something. For a long time. I waited, my expression neutral. "That night, years ago," she continued, her gaze dropping to the floor. When I ended things, I was wrong. About you. About everything." She finally looked up, her eyes filled with a raw honesty I hadn't seen in years. "I was so caught up in that world," she gestured vaguely around the room, "in what I thought I needed. Status, money, fitting in. I let it blind me. I didn't see what was right in front of me." Her voice trembled slightly. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, Brandon. You loved me unconditionally. You supported me when no one else did. You saw my potential even when I doubted myself. And I threw it all away because you didn't fit into some shallow idea of what my life should be." Tears welled up in her eyes, threatening to spill over. "I regret it, Brandon, more than you know. Seeing you in court, seeing the lawyer you've become, the man you are, It made me realize how much I lost, how much I sacrificed for this. She gestured around the room again, the glamour of the event suddenly seeming hollow. She looked at Mariana, then back at me, a profound sadness in her expression. You found someone who sees you, Brandon. Someone who values you for the incredible person you are. And you built a life, a real life, based on something meaningful. My heart ached for her, seeing her pain, her regret, but there was no bitterness in me, only a quiet understanding. I had moved past the hurt, past the anger. Chloe, I said softly, that was a long time ago. We were different people then. But you're not different, she said, a tear finally escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. You're still the same good man, just stronger, more confident. Mariana gently squeezed my arm, her silent support a powerful affirmation of our connection. I had to go through that, Chloe, I said. It was painful, but it made me who I am today. It taught me about my own worth, about what truly matters. I looked at Mariana, a warm smile spreading across my face. And it led me to this. Chloe followed my gaze to Mariana, and in that moment, she saw it, the genuine connection, the deep affection, the shared happiness that radiated between us. It wasn't about appearances or status. It was about two people who saw and loved each other for exactly who they were. The realization hit her visibly, a fresh wave of regret washing over her face. She saw not just the successful lawyer I had become, but the fulfilling life I had built, a life she had chosen not to be a part of. I'm happy for you, Brandon, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Truly, you deserve all the happiness in the world. Thank you, Chloe, I replied. I wish you peace, too. She nodded, a fragile smile on her face. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You too. She turned and walked away, disappearing back into the crowd. We watched her go, a sense of closure settling over us. It was over. The chapter was closed. Chloe found a quiet corner of the ballroom, watching Brandon and Mariana from a distance. She saw the way they interacted, the easy laughter, the comfortable silence, the way they looked at each other. It was a connection she had once had, a connection she had carelessly discarded in her pursuit of a life she thought she wanted. She had achieved the success she craved. She had the prestigious job, the elegant apartment, the designer clothes. She moved in circles she had once only dreamed of. But standing there, watching Brandon and Mariana, she felt an emptiness she couldn't fill with any material possession. She remembered the homemade banner, the simple dinner, the thoughtful pen. At the time, she had seen them as symbols of his limitations, reminders of the world she was trying to escape. Now, she saw them for what they truly were, expressions of pure, unconditional love from a man who saw her value when she couldn't even see it herself. She had chased a life of appearances, sacrificing genuine connection for superficial validation. And in doing so, she had lost the one person who had ever truly seen and loved her for who she was. Brandon had been right all along. He didn't fit into that world, the one she had desperately tried to enter. But he had built his own world, a world grounded in integrity, purpose, and authentic connection. And that world, she now realized with a pang of sorrow, was far richer than the one she inhabited. She understood now that true worth wasn't measured in bank accounts or job titles, but in the quality of one's character and the depth of one's relationships. She had traded a priceless treasure for glittering dust. Brandon and Mariana left the gala shortly after. As they drove home in my reliable, if not flashy, car, we talked about the evening. "Are you okay?" Mariana asked, her hand resting on my knee. "Yeah," I said, smiling at her. "More than okay. It was closure." "She seemed genuinely regretful," Mariana observed. "Maybe," I said. "I hope she finds what she's looking for." We drove in comfortable silence for a while, the city lights blurring past. My life wasn't perfect. There were still challenges, still struggles, but I had a fulfilling career, a loving partner, and a deep sense of peace that came from living a life aligned with my values. Chloe and I would likely cross paths again in the legal world, but our personal paths would never reconverge. The young man who was heartbroken and humiliated was gone, replaced by a man who knew his worth, not because of external success, but because he had built himself from the ground up, brick by painstaking brick. We had both learned valuable lessons, albeit through different and painful experiences. Chloe had learned that the life she chased was ultimately empty without genuine connection. I had learned that my worth was inherent, not dependent on anyone else's approval or any external measure of success. Our story was a testament to the fact that sometimes, losing what you thought you wanted is the only way to find what you truly need. I had lost Chloe, but in doing so, I had found myself, my purpose, and a love that was built on a foundation far stronger than status or wealth. And that, I knew, was a victory far greater than any courtroom win. Thanks for joining us in this story full of emotions and lessons. If it touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and tell us in the comments which part of this story touched your heart the most. See you next time.